Join Marty Johnson, the holistic health practitioner and founder of Total Health Nutrition Center in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin, as he delivers these podcasts to enlighten you and give you hope that there are health solutions to conditions that seem difficult to resolve, or even better answers than a medical approach of prescribing a chemical drug, which most times is nothing more than a Band-Aid fix, rather than getting to the root cause of your problem. The mission of the Total Health Podcast is to provide the education and support that will lead to transforming people's health so they can live a much more efficient, productive, and happier life the way God intended it to be. Join him now for his latest podcast. Hi, this is Marty Johnson, and I am here with Marty Johnson, and today we're going to talk about food sensitivities and really getting down to the root cause of those sensitivities. Marty, I'm in my 40s, and when I was a kid, I don't really remember seeing a lot of kids in my class or in my school that had food sensitivities the way that I see them now. I have a 15-year-old son, and even way back when he was 5, I had to be so careful packing his lunch, and he had to be careful where he sat for eating his lunch because there's a lot of kids that had all these crazy sensitivities that really could affect them if they even were exposed to them through the air. Why is this, Marty? What are your thoughts about this?
Well, yeah, I'm in my early 50s, and I don't recall seeing a lot of kids with, at least a lot of kids with allergies. Obviously, some of them probably did. But yeah, what we're seeing is really the reason why we're seeing more and more kids or even adults developing allergies that they may never have had before, or kids that have had them right from the get-go, is because of really, it's a product of intestinal health and what's going on with their digestive systems that's creating these sensitivities. Really?
Wow. Who would have thought that? That's kind of crazy to even think. How are they getting these intestinal issues? And, what's like the root cause of a kid having these things?
Well, in a normal situation, the intestinal wall actually you should have nutrition going through your intestines, as the food's breaking down, and molecules or nutrients should be able to sieve out into the bloodstream so that the cells and the body can nourish themselves. But what we're seeing is because of what the so-called advancements in farming and technology and advancements in seed technology, they're altering the way that they grow food from a standpoint of genetically modifying the seeds so that they actually produce their own pesticides so that the plants, they don't have to use as much pesticide on the plants. And then at the same time, in the farming, they're putting other types of pesticides or hybridizing the plants so that they produce more of a yield. And therefore, when you have your wheat, for instance, when it's hybridized, that wheat in the body converts to sugar at a much more rapid rate than the original grain or seed would have. Thus, and it has a lot more of a protein in it called gluten. So you probably have heard a lot about gluten sensitivities. Well, the new hybridized grains have 5 times the amount of gluten than the original ancient grains did. Wow. And this can be very inflammatory to the gut. So this inflammation can start to cause problems where when the intestinal tract allows nutrients through, if that intestinal lining opens up, kind of like a tightly bound fishnet, if you expand that fishnet, then more can go through, and now you have molecules of food that's entering into the bloodstream, and the immune system goes after it, trying to clean it up, creating a histamine response, which is basically allergy responses and a lot more inflammation.
Wow. So really the bottom line is that we are eating things that aren't good for our bodies because they're just kind of made that way, and we're not even realizing that's going on.
Right. Yeah, it's all in the name of profits with the big food industries and farming industries, not to mention that a lot of the nutrition is stripped out of the food and it's refined so that it can sit on the shelf longer and it doesn't rot as easily.
Sure. Okay. So really the bottom line is we need to kind of clean up what we're serving our families and ourselves, and kind of look for key things in our foods then?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, this issue goes much deeper than just food sensitivities. The reality of it is that when these molecules make their way into the bloodstream, if they attach onto other organs or other tissue, like for instance, if there's molecules that get into the bloodstream that shouldn't be there from the foods that you're eating, and they end up in your joints, then the immune system is going to try to go after that and clean it up. And if it can't keep up with that, the immune system will start to go after that healthy tissue. And now you call it rheumatoid arthritis. If it happens to attach on to maybe the thyroid, then it can end up being what's called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid. So, this issue with what we call leaky gut, where the intestines are allowing things through that they shouldn't, is much, much bigger than just allergies.
Sure. I see. I can totally see where you're going with this. So what are some answers? What do you suggest to kind of help with the situation for people? Because, once we understand what's going on, I want answers. I want a solution to this. Do you have any suggestions?
Sure. Well, what we do when we're working with people in a clinical environment is, number one, even though we have to start somewhere. So we'll start usually with doing some sort of identification of major food triggers that might be causing problems for an individual. So there may be specific foods that are more problematic, that have developed and are more problematic for that person. So we'll either do like 150 different, or like a blood test that might identify 150 different sensitivities to different foods or different foods. And we also will do other methods of testing to see what are the absolute biggest triggers, and then advise that person to avoid them long enough so the immune system can kind of back off. And then while we're doing that, we're teaching people how to replace the foods that they're not eating with healthier choices that are not modified genetically or that are not as processed.
Okay.
And then after that, then we go into looking at specific nutrients that we've highly researched that can help to heal that gut again and heal that leaky gut. And it really is different depending on each individual and what their needs are. So it's a very individualized approach to trying to heal that problem.
Sure. Yeah. I can see why it would be, because we're all different and we all kind of grew up in different environments. So that does make total sense to me. So how would somebody kind of get a hold of you to start this process if they were even interested in, working with you?
Yeah. That's not a problem. Actually, I thought of one other thing that I thought would be interesting is whenever you have this leaky gut scenario going on, you also have a mechanism. It's called the blood-brain barrier. And that is a protection mechanism to protect your brain from different toxins that could possibly enter the brain through the blood system.
Okay.
And that blood-brain barrier is very similar to the same tissue that's in your gut. So whenever there's gut issues going on or intestinal issues, there's always a breakdown or a potential breakdown of that blood-brain barrier, which lends a person to have more problems with focusing or concentration and potentially even dementia and things of that nature. So this issue that we're talking about goes way, way beyond just food allergies. It also has a lot to do with maintaining your brain health and so forth. Yeah. But yeah, if someone wants to, take charge of their health, and if anything we're talking about really hits a chord with you, then what we suggest is to call our office at 262-251-2929, and our office staff will actually set up a free or no charge phone consult with one of our practitioners so that we can really determine what's going on with you, talk with you a little bit, get some rapport with you, and to really find out if what we do is a good fit for you. We don't take every client, but we take people that we know we can help, and that's where that conversation can become very helpful.
That's great, Marty. I am just so thankful that you were able to be here today, and, you gave me a lot of good insight on this whole epidemic that we're dealing with food sensitivities. And really, you've given, I'm thinking everyone who's listening, and me especially, just given me hope that, I can go ahead and be able to suggest something for people who come to me and say, hey, I got food sensitivities. Instead of just dealing with it and avoiding it, you actually have a solution of how to heal the gut. And thank you so much for sharing all of your information today.
Sure, you're welcome. It was my pleasure to be here.
You've been listening to the Total Health Podcast. If you'd like more information about how Total Health can help you transform your health, please check them out at www.totalhealthinc.com, or you can call them at 262-251-2929.